strong, empowered, authentic.
What's up, Ginger Nation? This is Tosh.
This is Darren, and you are listening to the Authentic
Ginger Podcast.
What's up, Ginger Nation? My name is Darren.
And I'm Tosh. Welcome to the Authentic Ginger Podcast.
Here's the topic we're going to today is, so what is it about people not wanting to have a redhead baby? Or do they want to have a redhead baby? And if they do or don't, why? Like, why is this even a topic? But first, I wanted to kind of get us started with one quote that I read that just kind of creeps me out a bit. So here it is. I can't get over the feeling of the light skin and freckles. I'm a natural blonde and my husband's a brunette. With both my pregnancies, I was asked if I was worried about the possibility of my child having red hair. I've never heard or seen anybody say, gosh, I'm worried about having a blonde baby. Oh my gosh, I hope I have a brunette baby. Like, what the hell's going on? So before we get into this, I have this kind of a personal story I wanted to share with you and the audience. And yes, Authentic Ginger, I started in 2018. The podcast, you and I both started in November. But I have to be honest with you, and I'm going to be honest to the listening public here. When I wasn't pregnant with my first baby, but obviously my first wife was. I remember very, very clearly in the delivery room, and as I was, doing my duties as a father, new father, at a fairly young age. So I was 23. I'm not afraid to admit that. I remember when Michael was just being born. That's my son. And I remember somebody saying, oh my God, he has red hair. And I had this feeling in my stomach. This is no word of a lie. There was a pit that came into my stomach and I had no idea why. And I remember saying to the delivery, what do you call them? Delivery people. Are you sure he has red hair? Like, are you sure he has red hair? And here's the thing, like, I have blonde hair, you know that. My ex-wife is, chestnut color. I mean, it's dark. And at that time at 23, I have no idea what a fucking gene is.
No, you're not worried about that. No.
Yeah, I'm not thinking about it. But there was something in me that said, whose baby is this? I asked, are you sure this is mine? And I was really dead serious because I thought the only way for me to have a redhead baby was, there had to have been a redhead male to produce this. I had no idea about the gene at that time, the MC1R gene. And I was really distraught for days, like to the point where I don't know if the word is, it wasn't sad, it wasn't mad, but I have to say it was kind of disappointing. And I think I was disappointed because A, I didn't know anything about the culture of red hair, but B, it just didn't feel like it was mine. He was mine because I suspected at that age, I'm thinking to myself, the baby's going to have either brown hair or blonde hair because that's just what I had. I sort of understand what it means or what it would feel like if someone doesn't want to have a redhead baby, which to me is absolutely ludicrous. Let's just put that out there right now. What is your take on this? I mean, can you understand my point of view at a 23-year-old age, Darren, and having this, or am I just a complete idiot?
No, you're an idiot. Did she? Is that why you guys are no longer married?
No. Let's not get into that one.
I am. I can see your point, especially being 23. Like you're just a baby yourself, having babies. I can see, assuming you're going to have a blonde, you're going to have a brunette, but that kind of makes me wonder the opposite. So, and I'm going to ask my husband when I see him tonight when he gets home from work, because he, like your ex-wife, very dark brown. I have red hair, and our oldest was born a blonde, is still a blonde. So I wonder if that made him question, what's the difference between it being your son being born red and my daughter being born blonde when neither one of you have that hair color. Yeah. So that is interesting, but there is proof that babies are born looking like their fathers so that fathers can have an easier time connecting with their kids. So facial wise, he must have looked like you.
100%, just with red hair. I kind of go back to feeling that feeling of what it felt like at the time. And now in a different context because of this company and then the three daughters that I had all have red hair. So every single one of my kids has red hair. And then obviously to find out that it had to have been myself
Hmm.
who has the gene. And ultimately with Sheva, my wife now, she obviously carries the gene too, because all we were just pumping out redhead kids left, right, and center.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's no way we would have a blonde or certainly probably a brunette in our lifetime.
Yeah. And if anything, like a strawberry blonde or a dark auburn, which I think you have one of both, right? So, and then you've got a
Yes,
fire engine red in the middle. So,
that's it. Yep,
yeah,
that's it.
it is quite interesting, but I almost wonder if that feeling that you feel now when thinking back on that is almost more guilt now that you know better.
100%.
Whoever's quote you just read, I was like
Yep.
waiting for you to then follow up with that person saying, and then I had two beautiful redheads and I wouldn't change anything for the world.
No, no. This was an actual quote. Yeah, it's disturbing. As a ginger mom, what are you thinking? And I'm sure it's positive, but what are you thinking that same day? Does that actually cross your mind?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It did. I was disappointed that she didn't have red hair.
Isn't that something?
Yeah. I mean, and I would have obviously loved her either way. I was super pumped to finally just have her because, when you're pregnant, it feels like you're pregnant for freaking ever.
Right.
But you have these ideas in your head of what your baby's going to look like. And
Hmm.
I think because Jason's got brown hair and because I'm a redhead, I didn't expect blonde either.
Right.
But when she was first born, like the baby tufts of hair, she like in the light, you'd see a lot of ginge in her blonde. Now
Yep.
you don't. That's gone. Now she's more of a dirty blonde and she'll eventually go brunette, but is my guess. But she has everything else that's redhead. Like she's a hard carrier of the gene for sure. I would not be surprised if she has redheads herself. Like she's got my skin. She's got, she's got a high pain tolerance. She's very sensitive to the changes in temperature. Like she is a redhead with blonde hair.
Exactly. Which spawns in the next question. When your second was born, and you knew that she had red hair, or could you tell from the start? First
Right
of
from the
all,
start. Yeah, she came out fire. Yeah.
okay, so you knew that. So then, does anything else cross your mind at that point?
Like all of the other things about growing up a redhead.
Exactly.
I don't think so because I am a
No.
redhead. So it makes it easier. But when you and I, before we started to do the podcast on this today, I text my mom because she's a
Yep.
brunette and she raised two redheads. And I said to her, like, is there anything you would have liked to have known prior to having gingers? And
Yeah.
were we like, do you think that we were different to raise than someone else's kids were different to raise? And she was like,
Yeah.
no, there was such a difference between you and your brother. That was enough. Like,
Right.
because you guys are so different from each other and you're both redheads that I don't think she thought of the other things, but I did not until you really got me into like thinking about the fact that I'm a redhead, whatever.
Yep.
I knew we had a higher pain tolerance. I've always known that I had a higher pain tolerance, but I
Mhm.
didn't realize it was because I was a redhead. I think the first time I remember acknowledging that when I was 12, I fell off my bike and I broke my arm, like both bones in the top part of your arm and your forearm. I got back on my bike and I rode my bike home.
Hmm.
And my mom was like, and this is like early 90s, right? She's like, can you wiggle your fingers? Yep. She's like, you're fine then. You're fine.
Good.
And
Get back
then,
on your bike.
yeah, get back outside. So then I had to eat supper and I was still like, I don't, when I feel pain, I get nauseous. That's my way of feeling pain. Like I need to throw up.
Right.
And so then she's like, okay, maybe you are really hurt really bad. So I went to the hospital. Sure enough, my arm was broken, but they only saw one of the breaks. So for like a month, I wore the wrong cast.
Oh my God. No pain.
No, not
Jesus.
at all. And my brother too. I remember watching my brother spill a pot of boiling water on his leg and not even flinch.
Good Lord.
Yeah,
You people are superhuman.
it's weird.
At what point in our lives do we start to clue in about what we see in real life, in just everyday culture, where we start looking at people and we start deciding in our own brains what they look like, and basically, are they hot, good looking, not so hot, ugly? At what point in our lifetime do you think we as humans start to figure this out? And I ask that because at what point does a mom or a dad who are having a new baby, who are not quite sure, maybe there's someone red in the family, and at what point do they start thinking to themselves, and I don't even know if this is true or not, But I'm wondering if this sparks anything in anybody listening. Like, do you start to think, oh my God, if I have a redhead baby, it's going to be ugly?
There's got to be people out there that maybe are not producing children because they know they're carriers of the gene,
Hmm.
and they're just too afraid to have a ginger kid, which to me blows my mind, especially now because I feel like we're almost being put up on a pedestal now. Like I know
Agreed.
every ginger I see, I'm like, oh, I want to love you. I want,
Yep.
I want,
Yep.
like, especially for younger kids. And I'm really, 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 keeping my fingers crossed that that's going to be the new way. And I'm sure you're going to see it because you've got 3 girls and a boy. Life is so much different for a ginger boy than it is for a ginger girl.
What's up, Ginger Nation? If you're looking for authentic ginger swag, go to www.authenticginger.com. Use code AGPodcast for 20% off your next purchase. Yeah, it's funny because I read online here this morning, again, in America, parents are overjoyed to find out that they've given birth to a flame-haired baby, is what I read.
Flame haired.
And they go on to say, just think of the Instagram pictures. And I get that. In Ireland, though, there seems to be a really old-fashioned dislike for the world's rarest hair color. So that actually sparked something interesting in me because that's the most concentration of redheads. And one would think if you're the most concentrated country of redheads, you would just prop them right up to the top of the ceiling, to the clouds and back.
Yeah.
And then it goes on to say that there seems to be a bit of a gender bias as well, where as red-haired girls seem to get off lighter than boys, and that just goes to your point. I guess having a redhead baby or a baby boy, you may start thinking of, well, geez, is he ever gonna? And this is real shit. Is he ever going to have a girlfriend? Is anyone ever going to like him? Because we've all seen pictures that people have manifested online that have that ginger red flaming hair with all the freckles, and they make these people, and I call them characters because I don't think they're real people, but they make these people look the most awkward way they can possibly look. That just makes it to our brains when we all see that, oh, well, that person looks weird. But you don't see that with brunettes and blondes, right? So somebody is out there creating content and has created content for a long time about the stigma of what a redhead boy and then into a man should look like. But nowadays, if you follow this podcast and you follow what we're doing in Authentic Ginger, you'll find that most of the ginger men that we're talking to, and Tosh, I know you can contest to this, these guys are really good looking.
They're smoke shows.
They are. They really are. And so they've all taken that stigma that they've likely all had attached to them for years and said, "Fuck it, we're coming out of that shell and we're going to show you." The fact that they have to feel like they have to do that kind of pisses me off because it shouldn't be like that. But that's what society has done.
Having that like Joker or the funny best friend persona in movies is always played by the redhead. Like I immediately think of, I can't remember what his name was from The Sandlot, but the redhead boy from The Sandlot. Like he was the big kid in the movie.
Yep.
So he was the big kid, plus he had red hair, plus he had freckles, and he was the jokester in the movie.
Yep.
So like he had everything kind of like running against him.
I know, and you're right. You nailed it. These redhead boys that they portray in these shows or anything in culture, they're always bigger. They're always chubby.
Yeah.
I go to Goonies, and I don't know if that kid had red hair, but I feel like he had maybe strawberry.
Yeah.
They made that his character, look like a complete idiot.
Yep.
It's society, it's people in society who, for whatever reason, thought, let's put the awkward kid in the most awful role we could put him in, that not only portrays him as awkward, that will make everybody in society feel that, wow, I better not have a kid like that.
It makes you wonder, was it done on purpose? Or is it just subconsciously we're doing it? But also at the same time, these are ginger kids that are trying out for these roles,
Exactly.
So you tried out for that role. So maybe you're more comfortable as the sidekick as well.
Good point.
So maybe subconsciously that's a lot of these redhead men feel like that's the only role they can get.
Well, I would think too in that situation, in the industry, I'm assuming that director is going to say, we're looking for a redhead chubby kid
to
play a really shitty role. Yet The most memorable role to me is that kid. There's things that they
People
make him
identify with
say.
them.
People have identified with him. So at the same time as it's really brutally awful, at the same time it kind of turns around to a positive that's who you remember in that film. And in most films, you remember that sidekick. Why wasn't Brad Pitt cast as a redhead what is that movie that my wife loves so amazingly, and it's way back in the day when
Pick
Brad
one.
Pitt first started?
Legends of the Fall.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the one. Why couldn't that have been a redhead, right? Like a nice
Because
sexy redhead, like come on.
yeah, they didn't do that. Like, if you think about it, I'm just like thinking back to conversations we've had with other guests, especially the ones that like are in Hollywood. You see, we talk about women who are not redheads getting cast as redheads, dyeing their hair. You don't, I highly doubt you see roles that are like typecast for redheads
Yeah.
for men that we're going to take Brad Pitt and dye his hair. Like that's only just starting. So like Jamie from Outlander, he's a blonde.
But
And
that's a
they
Brad
dye his
Pitt.
hair red. But he is a Brad Pitt,
He's
exactly.
a Brad Pitt.
It's only within the last couple of years that we're really starting to see that. Archie from Riverdale, which was ridiculous. Like that guy did not look like a redhead. That was
No.
the dumbest thing they could have ever done. And
Yeah.
I mean, that was the only reason I didn't give that show a chance, because I was like, you guys look like idiots. Like you could have
Right.
cast any redhead in that role, but instead you chose to pick a guy who does not even have a red skin tone and very fakely dye his hair red. Like that's ridiculous and sad.
I agree.
Yeah.
But on the other side of that, you're putting a guy in that role who I think perhaps they're saying we need, and this is where it goes bad, we need a good looking guy,
Yeah.
and we're gonna put his hair red.
Yeah.
So if I'm a redhead kid and I don't know about, like, I at 23, when I didn't know really what the gene was and what I was having and why I was having this redhead baby, if I'm at that age, I'm gonna look at that Archie character and I'm gonna go, huh, that's cool.
Maybe.
That guy's got a lead role. Like, oh wow, maybe I could be that guy, depending on which way you look at it. So I came across a blog that's called Forever Amber, and I'm assuming that's her name. She's in the UK. And one of her posts talks about, the red mane. So she quotes, the article is long, so I took a few things out of it that I thought were kind of interesting. She quotes, "Don't you just pray that your children should you have them, are never cursed with this particular disfigurement?" So she uses the word disfigurement. Now, she's not saying she didn't want to have redhead kids. This is going into her past and what she feels and why other people would want to say this. She goes, lots of people do pray that is, and who can blame them? So it's kind of like what we're saying. So it's kind of like, I kind of get it. I a personal experience I had, you kind of understand why. Not quite the same, but close. But anyway, she carries on and she starts to say, so she had heard comments toward her as a young child from her mother, such as, "Oh, don't worry, she might grow out of it, or it might turn blonde." So she herself has been asked, "Do you ever worry that your children might inherit it, red hair?" And she goes, so her answer to this in her blog was, she was, recapturing a story. She said, "No, do you ever worry yours will inherit your complete lack of intellect?" She says, right? So, so people understand it, but at the same time, it is real. It's there. Now, she continued on about this whole subject with this quote, which I thought was really cool, that in order to avoid having a baby with red hair, you could first of all have genetic testing to determine whether you carry the mutant gene or not. If you do, then presumably your way is clear. You don't breed.
Yeah.
In other words, fuck off and don't have kids if that's how you feel.
It's true.
If you want to read the whole story in the blog, again, her blog name is let us see, what did I say it was? foreveramber.co.uk, I think is what the website is. But for those of you who are listening, if you actually have a story, or if you want to write something down for us and put it in our review, that would be really fantastic, because we'd like to know, have you heard about this before? Do you know somebody who has said this, and perhaps any reasons why that might be?
And that girl is right. She's right. Like, if that's the way you're thinking, you shouldn't be procreating, as far as I'm concerned. There are some things that I'm going to bring up in this article that I read, because maybe you are finding us because you're a new ginger parent. So there are some things to quote unquote watch out for when you're raising a ginge. So this is thanks to savvymom.ca. Like we talked about earlier, we feel pain differently. So you may notice that, your baby can hold on to something hot for a little bit longer than your other child that doesn't have red hair can and stuff like that. We're not superhuman. Don't worry. If you poke us, we still bleed. We are more sensitive to temperature. And that is something that for sure, I cannot stand being cold. And I also cannot stand being overly hot. So there's I need a happy medium in there. This one I really quite enjoyed because it's so true. Redheads are more susceptible to skin issues, and not just the fact that we sunburn easier. It also is because even though we have a higher tolerance to pain, we tend to bruise easier. And we also tend to get eczema easier than most other people. So that's something to keep in mind as well. The fact that everybody loves a ginger baby, they will be stopping you. They will want to touch your baby's hair. They will want to do things like that. So keep that in the back of your mind. And I love this that she put in the article. Do not let people tell you that your ginger baby can't wear a certain color. That gingers look good in every single color. Put it on them. Yeah.
So I put a post out last week on our Instagram, Authentic Ginger Clothing, and I put it out there, and the quote was, how did it go? Something to the effect of pink.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah.
Should gingers ever wear pink? And whoa, I was blasted.
Oh yeah.
No, I know the difference, but I wanted to put it out there to see if I could get anybody to talk about their experiences with the color pink in clothing. Mm-hmm. And you're right. Who said there was a fucking color difference?
I never wore pink as a kid. I never ever wore pink as a kid because I was always, and I still don't because I don't like the color pink. But I still don't. I think because in my head, I think that redheads shouldn't be wearing pink, which I know is not true. Right. At all. But I remember being told as a kid, you can't wear pink. You're never wearing pink. And I was like, that's cool because I'm a tomboy and I don't want to wear pink anyway. But...
Well, there you go. That's but those two colors together are actually quite magical.
They're contrasting colors. They look fantastic together.
They look amazing. Yeah. This is what I'm saying. Go grab your ginger baby something pink.
Yeah.
Everything pink, for heaven's sakes, and just go with it. It totally works. Don't ever.
My redhead wears pink all the time. That's her favorite color. She's in it all the time, and so it should be. So, okay, I think that we've concluded today's show with some half decent information. So the long and short of it is, don't be a jerk. That's all.
That's all. Yeah, don't be a jerk. You have been listening to the Authentic Ginger Podcast. Leave us a review. We'd love to hear it. Anything you have to say about this particular episode and any other episode. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you again real soon. You've been listening to the Authentic Ginger Podcast.
Become a part of the Ginger Nation by liking, subscribing, following, and leaving a review wherever you listen to podcasts. This podcast was produced by Tosh Taylor of the Podcast Hub Productions. Find her online at podcasthub.ca.